Hello and welcome to Frankly Speaking. And today joining me is the one and only Union Finance Minister, Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman. Thank you for joining me. And may I congratulate you for a stupendous success in the G20. Though the G20 has been seen as the great Indian big fat wedding, on the one side were serious negotiations, so the serious track was there. On the other, there was all the frills and fancies of art, culture, meeting, greeting going on. And then, of course, there were a few relatives who were extremely upset. How do you see the G20, the outcome, and of course, the opposition's reaction to it?
Well, I think G20 Delhi Declaration is a landmark piece of a document. And right at the beginning, unhesitatingly, I'll give all the credit to Honourable Prime Minister. And you will say, obviously, you're a minister, therefore, no. He had a complete picture of how this has to be handled in the country. He wanted it to be taken in every state and conducted in such a manner that the people feel that this is happening for our good. It is going to give something back to India. This is not just an international event, but all of us have something to contribute to it. So all this was explicitly stated by the Prime Minister, even from the days when we were planning, much before he took it over from Indonesia in Bali. So we knew that we had to take it to all states. We knew that it had to be a very clear people's participation. We also knew that this was the way in which India's hospitality, Aditi Devo Bhava, will be showcased. And obviously, the hardest thing, that the content of what we do is going to have such meat in it that people will participate, the delegates will participate with the nitty-gritty in their hand, so that the eventual document, which now is called Delhi Declaration, would be a landmark piece. Therefore, from the beginning, through the running in this 1 year, taking it to all states, showcasing the state's uniqueness, food, culture, their music, their festivals, their artwork, the craftsmen, everything was put in place. Now, is this something which is going to satisfy just our egos? No. Every member country and my counterparts have told me that India has actually handled it in such a way that it has lifted the entire G20 presidency for any country. It set a very high benchmark. And truly, some of them even told me that in their team, there would be at least one officer who's visited at least 10 destinations in this country in the process of the deputies meeting, working group meeting, and so on. So India has showcased itself as a good tourism destination. Culture has been showcased. People have been given a chance to interact with these delegates who came in. Many of the products which are top-notch products have been showcased there for them to buy it and even given as gifts by Honourable PM. All of us have given our counterparts. So it was utilized fully for putting India in its top position as a country worth visiting, seeing and appreciating for its values.
But many say that the manner in which this was conducted was almost as if you were using this event to catapult you in election season and market not just the Prime Minister, but market that India, that is Bharat, and that Prime Minister and his government are almost synonymous with the country itself. How do you react to that criticism?
Much before I react to all that, aren't they proud that India, in all its variety, in all its diversity, in all its cultural difference between one state to another, has been beautifully showcased? Are they not proud of it? Are they not proud that every delegate had a taste of all this for themselves? Was it possible within 1 year, even if you held a tourism year, India tourism year, would you have managed to do this much to draw the attention of top 20 countries of the world through their ministers and through their premiers, presidents, whoever, to draw attention to India, especially when the world is looking at one crisis after another with a sense of hopelessness? Wouldn't you think that this is a contribution that India's made to the world and in return got recognition? I would think that is the way to look at. You can have your domestic policy, politics and its compulsions. But wouldn't you want to first of all say that it has been conducted keeping all states in mind? There are times when people scream saying it's a federal structure, you've not respect. We've showcased every state. And in the process also kept in mind the sensitivity of some countries. We didn't bother. What is our sovereign land, we'll display, we'll showcase, we'll host. These don't appear. All right, now, in response to the question, India held Asiad Games. India held non-aligned summit. Was it for showcasing the then prime ministers? Was it just for election purpose? Oh, if that was the way you ran it, good luck to you. You ran it then, you may run it and run it similarly whenever in distant future you get a chance. But I thought it was the right approach Prime Minister took, that it's an opportunity to showcase India in all its variety. And that's what he did. And that was before you, before me, before all of us. I think the opposition should get out of its negative mindset and first concede on what it has given us, and then do your politics.
But there is no recognition, you think, of the fact some people in the opposition have come out and complimented.
The random one, Shashi Tharoor.
Random? He's not random.
In the sense, in the party.
He's a member of parliament.
Of course he's a member of parliament. Of course he heads some of the important committees. Of course I recognize him as a very important member of the Congress party. But when I say random, just one odd individual. And that is his individual opinion. None of the parties which form those ... alliance, India alliance, have even had the grace to say, which the world has seen, that India was able to now negotiate, even on some very sensitive and contentious issues, to bring all the countries, top 20, G20 countries on board and get a consensus at a time when you saw the last 3 presidencies went with one or the other issue and couldn't even find, one common note on which they could be brought together. Here, not just on one issue, but on every issue. Consensus. India's diplomacy today is seen with the sense of awe, the maturity, the suave way in which they handled it, have all been recognized.
But they say you didn't even allow the US president to hold a press conference. Na bolunga, na bolne dunga. Mr. Jairam Ramesh, the head of the media cell of the Congress party, actually said that Mr. Joe Biden had to go to Vietnam to make his statement on the concerns about human rights, freedoms of various kinds in India. How do you respond to that criticism?
Wherever Prime Minister had a bilateral meeting, at the end of it, if there was a press release, they released it. If Jairam chooses that there should have been a press conference here and a statement there or a statement here, it doesn't go by the interest and wish list of the opposition. Bilaterally, the 2 countries decide where they have to do it. It is not decided solely by the PMO. So he knows all this. He knows as to how in a multilateral event and where bilaterals are also held, how things are conducted. Well, what does it cost him for him to say anything?
They also say that humongous amounts of money were spent at a time when India is reeling under inflation. Common people are facing the brunt of high prices on their wallets, and inflation rates in July, especially the food inflation, has been extremely high.
Navika, I can talk for quite some time on just the inflation, particularly that food inflation. They're shedding crocodile tears. during their period, it had reached 12%, 13%, and so on. I'm not saying the prices of edible products, particularly perishables, are not pinching the common people. We are trying to make sure that the supply side difficulties are handled. And I'm not indifferent to it. We are making sure that improved supplies reach people, and you saw tomatoes have already crashed to the other end, where the farmers are not even getting their input costs back. So there are mismatches, supply side mismatches. There is a group of ministers who look at it almost alternative days to make sure that commodities reach. And at that time too, I stood up in the parliament to answer that for tomatoes, we are procuring from Kolar and some tomato growing areas and importing from Nepal and immediately spreading. And you must have seen, as media, you would have noticed in Delhi, in different areas, we sent mobile vans to sell tomatoes to people.
But we are the boycotted media. So, they don't believe us.
Right. So all the talk that and all the talking down about freedom of speech and press freedom is only to us, not to anybody else. So the point that the opposition will have to sit up and answer on is, if you're talking on inflation, I'm happy to answer, which I did in the parliament, and I'll do it again whenever you ask me. But would you please care to sit there to listen to my reply or walk out? You ask the questions, you've done your job, because you can go tell the common people that I've raised this issue in the parliament. But you won't be there to listen to the reply. Why me? They don't sit even to hear the Prime Minister speak. So they're shedding tears on democracy and freedom of speech. And they're telling us about gagging media. When they've come out to the honor list, you're in the list of, so honorable media persons who they don't want to face. They don't have the courage to answer media and its questions. But they'll say, we talk truth to power. Is this talking truth to power, saying, I don't care, I don't recognize your existence, oh, you anchors, stay where you are, we won't come to you? It's clearly saying that we don't have the courage to face you.
Yeah.
So you should wear it as a badge of honor.
Till day before yesterday, many of those parties and their representatives were on our shows, and suddenly, within 12 hours, the position changed. But
they say they are what? Pyar ka dukan, something, no?
Mohabbat ka dukan.
Whatever. If they have to send the message on Mohabbat ka dukan, they need a medium. Don't they want to talk to media? And the list of 12, like 14. Like in economy, we always say ASEAN group or BRICS group. They have 40% of the global trade, or this has 30% of the global trade, and so on. The group of 14 have nearly what? 45 to 50% of TV coverage, viewership. They don't want it.
Well,
how are they spreading the message of Mohabbat ka dukan?
Well, they're
showing nafrat to you all.
We are true. We are the B14, the boycotted 14. That's the grouping that we are part of. But apart from that, is there a complete breakdown in communication? Do you think the government could have been magnanimous and called Mr. Mallikarjun Kharge, the leader of opposition, Mr. Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary, the leader of the largest opposition party in Lok Sabha, for the G20 dinner? Because of Mr. Mallikarjun Kharge not being called, there were two chief ministers who didn't quite turn up. I just want to ask you,
Ministers who quite didn't turn?
Ashok Gehlot and Mr. Bhupesh Baghel.
Yeah, Congress chief minister from Himachal Pradesh was there. So see, as a constitutional position holder, chief minister, you're invited, you come. But if your party were to tell you, your constitutional duty being what it is, don't bother. You should not represent, because you are the chief minister of all the people of that state. Irrespective of that, you shall not go, because I, as a party, will give you a partisan call to say, don't go for a dinner being hosted by who? The President of India. She's inviting all the G20 heads of states to come. And there you want to go and boycott? You're insulting a president, a woman president, a tribal lady who's come up that far. You're insulting her. You're not insulting Prime Minister, you're insulting the Rashtrapati. What a shame. A party which has been in power, which every now and then reminds you, oh, you did not invite Rashtrapati for the inauguration of the parliament. The invite is from her. You're insulting her. And upar se, giving a different kind of a story to the public. They are duty bound to answer if they have instructed their chief ministers not to attend. The chief ministers don't represent Congress party in that state. They represent the people of that state.
So, Nirmala Sitharaman, is there an India alliance? And there were differences that were very visible at that dinner, but the G20 dinner gala all seems a long time ago, especially when you talk about statements and instances that have come up since then. I want to specifically ask you, you are from the South and you understand Dravidian politics, you're from Tamil Nadu. I want to ask you, when Mr. Stalin, when Mr. A. Raja, when there is a minister in the DMK government in Tamil Nadu, they all come out almost as if it's a chorus and say that Sanatan Dharma should be removed, eradicated, and that Hinduism is, is such a problem, not only in India, it's all over, it's a menace, it's malaria, it's dengue, it's even leprosy and HIV. What do you make of this? Is this their belief because they follow Dravidian politics, or is there an agenda?
Navika, whilst I'll talk as a representative of the government, I'll talk as a party, once upon a time, spokesperson, I'll talk as a BJP worker, I'll talk as a citizen of India. But with all this, I also want you to understand, I have lived experience in Tamil Nadu where this politics of hate against Hindus, hate against a particular caste, which is Brahmin, have been actively practiced by the DMK for almost now 70 years. My grandfather's had experiences. My family has had experiences. I have been mocked every time I go to college or school or go for my Hindi class or go for my Sanskrit class. This is the politics they play in the ground. And the rest of the country, because everything happens in Tamil, and most people don't even understand what is happening because they don't understand Tamil. It's been sort of, okay, something is happening, you look the other way and you carry on with your business. But this is happening in Tamil Nadu, not today. It's been happening for 70 years. Why this time it's gaining so much of traction? Because a minister who has sworn by the constitution, oath of office, violates and speaks, I will eradicate, destroy, dismantle, abolish, you use any number of synonyms. Sanatan Dharma. What happens to the oath that is taken by the constitution? One, in that meeting on the dais is another minister who's a minister for Hindu religious charitable endowments. That's a ministry to protect temples, to keep the worship there going on, to fund the temples properly, to the collected donation be used for the pilgrims' welfare. It's a different story that it can be even siphoned off for other non-religious purposes, non-Hindu religious purposes. But the minister who is meant to be protecting and taking care of temples under the Hindu religious charitable endowments is seated there, doesn't blink an eyelid, doesn't have an objection for this minister who speaks this, and look at the state of affairs then. Ministers who have sworn by the constitution, and this I.N.D.I alliance, which speaks of secularism, which sheds crocodile tears. Oh, secularism. Does secularism mean that you will appease? That's what you've been doing, and we accuse them of that even today. Appeasement of one particular section. But does it equally mean that hatred of Sanatan Dharma, And you go to the extent, and this minister who speaks, who's no less than the son of the chief minister, he speaks, he's a sworn minister by the constitution. He says, oh, you know, actually I'm extra happy. I'm paraphrasing, don't quote me, paraphrasing. He said, I'm extra happy that it is not a meeting for protesting against Sanatan Dharma, but it's a meeting to say, we'll eradicate it. He says it in so many words. எதிர்ப்பு மகாநாடு இல்ல, ஒழிக்கிறதுக்கு மகாநாடு. Meaning, எதிர்ப்பு is protest. And ஒழிக்கிறது is for eradication, a complete removal. He says all this, having sworn by the, constitution, oath of office, that he shall not do anything against anybody in the name of hate or in the name of, building ill will among people.
Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman, is it a coincidence that Mr. Rahul Gandhi, whenever there's something big happening in India, is traveling abroad and raising issues of dissonance in India? Is it a coincidence, or do you think he has the right to raise these issues? And in the country, not too much credence is given to the objections raised by the opposition, and there's no engagement with the treasury benches on this. So he raises them abroad. That's the explanation. Where do you stand on this?
You wondered if it was a coincidence. I don't wonder if it's a coincidence or not, because dates for G20 Summit, or dates for Parliament, or dates for anything major happening in the country are all normally in advance announced. So you, me, anybody will know about these dates. Now, despite knowing you will still want to go abroad, well, that's your right. I can't say no. But is it a coincidence? No. How can it be a coincidence? It's public knowledge. So you still want to go. That's about it. Do it. You still want to go? Go. But one thing which Rahul Gandhi is consistent about, and I have to say he's consistent about, is he never misses a chance, particularly when he goes abroad, to voice everything negative about India, because he hates Prime Minister Modi. And he's continuing to do it. And people might say he's not given a chance here to speak, and therefore he's finding an audience there and he's going and doing it there. Let them give any inference they want. But he was not even in the House during the vote of confidence. A fleeting appearance and a fleeting disappearance, and then coming back again, and then completely going away. So engagement with him, opportunity was there before you. You've come back to the Parliament after an unfortunate case in which you chose to not apologize before the court for having made a very depreciating remark against the entire community, again, driven by your hate against Prime Minister Modi. You come back to the Parliament, and your party wants to celebrate it, your arrival into the House. And where were you? Your party's vote of no confidence, you've gone off.
You are the first woman finance minister, and many people, when they look at you, especially women in this country, they look at you and feel that she'll probably understand our kitchen worries, our wallet worries more than others. Women tend to be the budget keepers at home as well. They're looking forward today to know from you, what's your roadmap from now till maybe the end of your term, so that they can plan their lives around it?
Yes, I can for once say very clearly, I have not increased tax on any item till now, GST or direct. No, yes. So this is one thing. Second, particularly for perishable commodities, we have made sure that supply side problems are addressed. There is a group of ministers which looks into it in detail. Rice and wheat have been released from Food Corporation of India go down so that market prices come down. Efforts are being made to make sure inflation is contained. And for those who wanted lesser rate of tax to pay, income tax, I've brought in a second parallel system through which you pay lesser tax. And in that, people said standard direction is not being given, and therefore it is still not attractive. I brought that in. So now, if you're earning approximately 60,000 rupees, you don't pay any tax at all. For 7 lakh odd, we don't charge any tax. So reduction of income tax has happened.
Dil mange more.
That's fine. You have every right.
But will you
No,
actually oblige?
I've heard you. Let's see.
Let me ask you on a personal note, Nirmala ji. You know, being a finance minister, holding a very, very responsible and heavy-duty position, being part of the Cabinet Committee on Security, Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, has its own pressures. When you see comments on social media, do you actually go through them? Do you see the memes? How do they affect you?
I do go through them. There was a time, I think, long time back, several years back, when it used to make me feel bad. Now I don't feel bad at all. I do hear the messages which come out. The memes entertain me. Actually, they do entertain me, and I don't mind if people want to make a joke out of it. But the intentions with which I work continue to be like before. I have to serve and serve for the country. That continues.
What next? Will you fight an election? Because political stories coming out say that everybody who's in the Rajya Sabha has been told to prepare to fight Lok Sabha elections. Will you be doing that?
Well, it's not been told to. I think if it's possible to consider. So that's where it lies.
Any discussion, debate, any area that you may have?
No discussions.
Nirmala Sitharaman, thank you very much for a very candid point of view. And do you manage to still continue to do a few of your hobbies along
Yes, I
with?
do. Yes, I do.
And what are they?
Well, read books, listen to a lot of good music.
Carnatic music?
Classical music.
Classic.
Both Hindustani.
And that relaxes you?
Absolutely. There's no magic beyond music and mantra.
After the cacophony of politics.
Good mantra, listening to good mantra, reciting some mantras, and listening to music are great energy givers.
Well, many will see that as Sanatani all the way. Well, on that note, thank you very much for joining me on Frankly Speaking. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Navika.